Live, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Good. Oh, right, with lots of dinging going on. Good evening. Welcome to this Strategy and Resources Committee on the 14th of March 2024. My name is Councillor Maldon and I'm the chairperson of this committee. Members, we are streaming the meeting live as well as recording, and being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I'll then invite you at the appropriate time. Members, please don't approach the front table as this could interfere with the cameras. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphones. Therefore, can I ask, when invited to speak, you remember to turn your microphone on and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers, and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Try not to repeat. Members, we've got a long agenda tonight, so we want to get through it all. Item 2 is apologies for absence. Have we any apologies, Tara?
Yes, Chairman, we've got apologies from Councillor Bound, Councillor Lay, Councillor Siddle and Councillor Thompson. Councillor Stevens is attending as a substitute for Councillor Siddle, and Councillor Morgan is attending as a substitute for Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Item 3, minutes. It is recommended that the minutes of the meetings held on the 25th of January and the 1st of February are approved as a true and accurate record. The minutes of 25th of January can be found on pages 5 to 226, and the special meeting of the 1st of February, pages 227 to 230. I so moved. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Spenceley. Members, do you wish to raise any matters of accuracy? Excellent. I see none. Can we agree that by assent, please? Thank you very much indeed. A little more vigour with the agrees, I think, so we can... Yes, okay. Item 4, declarations of interest to disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests, and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct to members. And members, you are reminded that you are also required to disclose any such interest as soon as you become aware, should the need arise, throughout the meeting. Members? I see no indications, so we move on to item 5, public participation. Unless things have changed, I can advise that we haven't received any submissions from members of the public. Is that correct, Tara?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you very much indeed. So we now move into the reports, and the report on agenda item 6 is budgetary control report as at 31st of December 2023, to be found on pages 231 to 240. Ms. Lucas, I assume that's you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the purpose of this report is to provide this committee with information in relation to the Council's financial performance up to the 31st of December 2023. It's recommended that the committee reviews the forecast revenue position as at that date, and also the capital position, which is summarised at Appendix 1. In addition, the committee is also asked to approve tonight a drawdown of £98,000 from the Transformation Reserve to fund the 2-year extension of a fixed-term IT specialist role, which is set out at paragraph 5.2 of the report. Just to provide a brief overview of the content of the report. So Table 1 at page 232 provides an overview of the current service forecast budget variances for the Council. Currently, there's a forecast overspend on employee costs of £117,000 and on non-employee costs of £291,000. However, they are offset by forecast income overachievement of £695,000, resulting in a net service expenditure forecast of £288,000 as at the 31st of December. The details of those variances are explained throughout the report. Further to that, at table 6 at page 100 and 236 sets out the Council's total anticipated underspend in addition to those service variances after taking into account investment income, and after taking into account overachievement on investment income, the net position forecast for the council is an underspend of £788,000. Just to say, at table 8, we show that the general fund balance is expected to remain above the minimum recommended level that the council set of 2.6 million for this financial year. Section 8 of the report sets out the capital programme summary, and there's further detail on that, as I say, provided at Appendix 1. The only change to the capital programme since Q2 is that a Changing Places facility has been added to the capital programme to be delivered at the Blackwater Leisure Centre, which will be funded through a government grant of £100,000. The works for that are commencing in this financial year, but they're not expected to be completed until early in the new financial year. I think that's all I'll say at this point, and if members have got any questions, I'll do my best to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms Lucas. Members, we've got 3 recommendations. Little 1 and Little 2 are asking us to review, and then Little 3 is to agree the drawdown. Members, any questions for the officer? Are we happy to... Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I ask for some more information on 5.2, page 235? It is request the above drawdown. I thought we were just congratulating ourselves at the budget meeting on how well we'd done about the savings we've made, and we're already asking for a £98,000 for the Transformation Fund. I would like to know how much is in the Transformation Reserve Fund anyway. I think we've asked this on numerous occasions, and forgive me, I can't remember if I've ever been told how much we've actually got, and is it an annual thing or is it a big pot of money? And I'd also like to know about the post, and when the post was created, was a business case put that post was a year at that stage, or 2 years, or 3 years, and why wasn't it budgeted for to develop the IDOCS, uniform, Civica, whatever all that the key systems are for the council? I'm not criticising, I just would like those questions, and I have some more questions following that, Chair, if you'll allow me when I've got those answers. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Ms Lucas.
Yeah, thank you. So in relation to the reserves position, including the transformation reserve, that is reported at least annually through our provisional outturn report. So members of this committee may recall that we had a detailed discussion around the reserves as at July last year, and there's additions and drawdowns that are approved throughout the year, so the position does fluctuate. I can provide an updated estimate outside of this meeting if that's helpful, but as part of the provisional outturn for this year, we will obviously provide an update to members on what the overall position of that particular reserve is. In terms of why it wasn't sort of factored into the budget, this is a fixed term role, so we're not looking to create a new permanent role and fund that sort of ongoing. I believe it's an existing role that has been in post anyway, but there's further work that this post needs to deliver, as the report sets out, in terms of the development of the IDOCS and uniform systems, which are kind of key systems for the council, and it's felt that without this kind of specialist role, the development of those systems won't be able to be completed. So that's the reasoning to continue with the fixed term post over the next 2 years, which is what the funding is requested for, but it is intended that that would support and deliver ongoing savings for the council through the delivery of efficiencies that can be made through the development of that system. I don't know if Richard or anyone else wanted to say anything on that point.
Thank you, Chair. I think just to support the fact that that officer is necessary to help us deliver future savings. So these are core systems of the council. We don't have the expertise or resource that we can spare that could take that forward. And so that's why this post is it's been put forward.
Yes, Councillor Stamp.
Can I come back? How long has this post been created for anyways, the temporary post? All my main concerns are, as I think it's 52% is staff salaries and wages. Now, I don't know if that's just permanent staff or if it's going to include temporary staff, contracted staff, whether it be fixed term, 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, I don't know. And I just really do need to understand more, because we know historically we're going to be sitting around a table at the finance working group when we're going to be asked to make lots of savings. And to be able to do that, we need to have, as far as I'm concerned, to me, it should have been budgeted for. If you knew you were starting a project, a business case should have been raised. And I accept to a degree, I don't agree with it, but I accept that, coming back for more money. But how many times have we sat at this committee and said, you keep coming back, you keep coming back? Why is it not budgeted for initially when the budget is set? Yep, that's absolutely fine. And then I'll ask my other questions.
I think to try and answer your question, I think the reason that these sort of one-off requests do come back to the committee is the nature of them being non-permanent posts. So in general terms, when we set the budget, we are looking to obviously resource our ongoing establishment. And when you refer to 52% of roughly of the overall budget being for staff costs, that they are our core sort of establishments, or our ongoing posts which are funded ongoing. The purpose of holding reserves is to enable us to fund one-off investments, and particularly the transformation reserve that is set up so that we can deliver ongoing efficiencies. So by investing in this post and the development of these systems, as I say, it's intended that will deliver ongoing financial savings to the council, which will then contribute to the overall savings gap. So that's the reason it's dealt with in that particular way.
Chair, I'll give way now to the other members, but then can I come back and ask some questions after the other members, please?
I just
well,
thank you, because it is relevant to what Councillor Stamp said.
Go ahead, Councillor.
And I know we're all keen to move on, but I think Mr. Holmes just said, in my own words, it's an investor save appointment. So what are we expecting at the end of this? I mean, we're saying that we're going to invest this money into this new role to save money. I mean, I like the idea of having a brief business plan or something to understand what that means. But perhaps you could give the committee a précis of what you're anticipating after years 1 and 2.
I haven't got all of the detail of the business case to hand, but I can provide a sort of update outside of the meeting. But I know, for example, that part of the business case was around developing some of the planning work which would enable resource to be released in the longer term. So it will support, as I say, the wider development of the systems over a number of areas, but including particular things like the planning area, which the intention is that would release officer time over the longer term.
Yeah, okay, so I get that. But we need to monitor these things. I mean, sorry, I don't know if that's somebody outside the car. But, we really need to monitor these things for all the reasons that Councillor Stamp has just said, and no doubt will echo again later. So perhaps we could have the business case back at the next meeting, Chairman, and look at how we're going to monitor this, because these are huge amounts of money.
Yeah, please do.
As I say, I'm happy to provide a bit further detail around this, and obviously to monitor the ongoing delivery of savings, which is something that the council is intending to strengthen its reporting around the delivery of its savings anyway. But I would suggest to members that it would be helpful if we could approve the funding for the post, because, as I say, that the person is already in post, and I think a delay to a decision tonight, when there's not another committee, I don't believe until sort of June time, will potentially make it difficult to retain that continuity within the service to enable the work to continue.
I think we understand that, but I don't think it's unreasonable to have further information that we can use to evaluate it. Councillor Fittock, you were next.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I reiterate what the two councillors said before me. It would be nice to understand what the actual savings will be and how long they'll take to actually be achieved, because are we saying that we'll cover this in 2 years? So we'd expect to get a saving in our budget next year or the year after, because I also understand that we're running out of capital reserves as well. So the more money that we're spending on things that we don't need to do, the less money we're going to have in the future to spend on the things that we do need to do. So I agree that I do feel we need some more information to properly review the decision.
This is certainly something the Finance Working Group is going to need the exact figures in order to make its deliberations. Councillor White, you were next.
Yeah, actually, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Although some of my questions have partly been answered. We definitely need more information on this, because it's funny how it seems to come to the same amount of money as what they wanted for the area planning committees, and then we decided that it was going to work out £3,000 or £4,000 a meeting. I can't remember what the figure was now. Every time this comes to us, we set the budget, and then no matter when we set the budget, you can guarantee 1 month later we have another urgent request for funding. So if this gentleman or woman is in post, if this person's in post, how are we funding them, and how do we need more money? Because if that was, as Councillor Stamp said, when was this decision made? Because surely this should have been part of a budget growth area and not left until now to do an emergency session. Because for me, we've done the budget, we've set our place, as Councillor Fittock said, we can't keep going into the reserve. So I didn't really hear the answer. When was this person put into post? And why is this request coming after the budget, which was only recently set? Thank you.
So I don't have the full history immediately to hand in terms of when the post was originally created, but I believe it was subject to a separate decision when the person, I think they may have been in post for a year or two already. As I say, I can provide further detail on that outside of the meeting, but as I would just reiterate what I responded to Councillor Stamp's query, is that although we set a budget each year, we can't legislate for absolutely everything at this point of budget setting. And as I say, we focus on the ongoing permanent posts and how they are funded within the budget. There's always going to be potential projects or one-off requests, and the purpose of us holding the reserves and using those in the best way is to enable us to fund these kind of one-off projects kind of items. So I wouldn't necessarily anticipate that items such as this would be built into the base budget for the year ahead. So I think that's just the way the council budgets work. So hopefully that provides a little more context.
I'll let you come back, Councillor White.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I'd like to propose that this is deferred, because I think we need a lot of background on this, because if we continually agree these last minute emergencies when staff are already in post and have been there for a couple of years, there's no way we're going to balance our books. And I think as a responsible authority, we need to start budgeting our books. I mean, yes, if we need this officer, we need them, but I'd like to defer it. I don't know if I'll get a seconder until we get a detailed report, and also why it wasn't in the budget as a growth item. Thank you.
Well, Councillor White, I think we've heard that the officers don't really want us to defer it. I think I would be happy to have a full business case come back and full justification come back in, but that's of course down to you members to decide. So, Councillor Spenceley.
Well, I know from experience that a review of a major management information system costs money. These things have a certain life cycle and a certain bedding in time. So from my point of view, I'm prepared to accept that it's a cost that we have to take, and there is a transformation reserve for transformation purposes. And if it's a management information system, I think it's some sort of case management system that will eventually lead to economies, then I'm happy to support it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Driver, were you?
Yeah. I would be happy to support it as well, but I do want to echo the comments that have been made about how we've arrived at this position, because it is quite a large sum of money. It's not 10,000, it's, you know, best part of 100,000. That's a big sum, which I would have thought we could have anticipated. I did notice, and it's a slight segue, but there is in the CLT news under appointments a marketing post, fixed term 2-year marketing post, and I thought we'd reduced the numbers that we got within the marketing team, and this seems to have reappeared as a fixed term contract. Now I know we lost somebody who was on a fixed term contract, and whether they're just being the person we've lost on a fixed term is being replaced by another fixed term so that we don't have a permanent post. But it feels like a little bit something's coming through the back door, and I feel a bit uncomfortable about this, though I will support this, but I do feel a bit uncomfortable.
I suspect that post, is that for Alexis? Alexis leaving, yeah, which we weren't expecting.
Okay.
Mr. Holmes. do you-
Chairman, that's correct. So we had a resignation in the team, and rather than replace it back into the establishment, I believe that's been on a fixed-term contract. So that's the reason you saw it. So nothing other than a resignation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, Councillor White, one more go.
Thank you. But if we had a resignation, surely we don't need a budget growth. We'd just replace the resignation with
It's
the
not a budget
existing
growth.
staff member.
We are. There's not a budget growth for that. It's been advertised.
Yeah, but if I might come back, if we're asking for 100,000 for a new officer, if that officer is replacing one that's resigned,
No,
surely-
you're no. This is
sorry,
a completely
I misheard. Then my
completely different
apologies.
role.
I misheard. Sorry.
Yeah, Councillor Driver was referring to the marketing role, which was Alexis. Right, Councillor Fluker, and then we're going to move on very quickly.
I just want to say something. I mean, it would be nice with the transformation reserve if perhaps, you know, we could have a look at that in its entirety to have some options and choices about where we want to invest money. I think that's the most important thing. Look, I'm based on what the 151 officer has said, I'm happy to support this, but only on the understanding that we do have a report back and we can monitor what this role delivers. I think that's really important if it's invest to save. And Chairman, I'll move to other matters now. Chairman, on page 234, I always struggle with local authority accounts, but brackets tend to be good news. So I presume that the income from waste services this year is now going to max out at just over 2.6 million, an increase of 94,000. So that's good news. And Chairman, on the same page, bullet number 6, premises. We've got an income of £384,000, and that's going to rise by 7,000 or so. Meaningless. And I say that, Chairman, because it still remains meaningless insofar as the fact that I've asked this question 4 times before. How much is it costing to run this building? How much is the electricity? What rates are we paying? What are the utility costs? Because this is really meaningless. If we're expending a huge amount of money on attracting tenants, and we haven't got a clue what the profit is, because what the cost of it doesn't fit into the top 15, but nevertheless, I've asked that question, and I think it's time we had it, Chairman, the answer to that question. So I don't know if the 151's in a position to give me that answer.
I suspect not tonight, but I suspect...
But I keep asking.
I know, Councillor Fluker.
Yeah, you've heard me ask it, yeah, so, okay, I'll park it then. But I'm pleased to see that the waste is returning such a surplus.
Right, thank you. Councillor Stamp, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah. Can I have some more information on the 100,000 grant that we've got for Blackwater Leisure, please? And where it's going to be spent, because I noticed that the AHU, I presume it's the air handling unit, is being put off, I think, was it for a year? This writing's so small, Chair. I do struggle to read some of this information, as I think you've heard me say previously. Is it, Blackwater air handling unit, delayed from last year, we note, I think that should say, will not be completed this year as revised quotes now required. So if we're getting 100 grand, then we're going to look at spending, is it 47? More on another unit. Can I just have confirmation on what the 100's been spent on? Also, looking at these comments on Appendix 1, I note that that the Section 106 funding for the Burnham Skate Park is short of 46,000, and the council wants to defer it yet again. We do know there is a time limit on delivering that project, Chair, and I've raised this on many occasions and been assured that it won't run out. I've got a great fear because it doesn't say you're going to via the funds, whereas on the other ones you're going to via funds because it's a Maldon project. Why yet again is a Burnham project not having any funds transferred? You've got money in the transformation fund. Why are we not having our projects being delivered? I will stop there, Chair, because I
appreciate that. Thank you, Councillor. And we'll see if Mr. Butcher, I think you probably answer that.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can answer the first two in relation to changing places and the AHU. So Josh Fulcher, before he left, was successful in applying for a grant for £100,000 from the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, specifically for a changing places facility at one of our leisure centres. So that's a fully disabled and accessible changing area with a hoist and something that will really promote and support people with disabilities coming into our leisure centre at the Blackwater. That has started just a few weeks ago, and we anticipate that we'll be about halfway through the programme of works, and then we'll reach the end of the financial year. So we need to put we'll be raising a year-end accrual for the 50% of the works that have been completed now, and 50% to be completed in the future financial year. The air handling unit is one where we need to move money across. We've had an AHU that moves air around the Blackwater Leisure Centre. It's been out of commission for several years, and we're in a position now to be able to fund that and put that in place. However, the quotes we've received are a little bit out of date now, so we're just going back to get revised quotes before we commence with the works.
So, Chair, is that already budgeted for?
Within this paper, it is, yes.
Can I, so are you saying we haven't had an operational air handling unit at Blackwater for a couple of years? I mean, knowing swimming pool buildings like I do, is the most important bit of kit because it stops everything steaming up and going mouldy.
Yes, we have in certain areas, but it doesn't cover the staff, some of the staff offices and other areas. But the transfer unit between the pool, the gym, and the main areas of use are fully functional.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good. Right, members, look,
Chair, Section
Yes.
106, I haven't had an answer.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the Section 106 officers started last week, have a full work programme. We're just looking at the list now, and the Riverside Park skate park equipment is on that list for works to be done. I understand the officer will be holding a briefing shortly with members and ward members to give them an update on the programme. The officer is fully aware of the timescales and the 106 funding and commitments to that, and the work programme has been set up to make sure we don't lose any funding. That effectively is why they're here now, to get us across the line. And members agreed that extra post for that very reason, to make sure we had resources.
we did, yeah.
I'm going to come. I understand that, but it doesn't say that on the form. It says it's short of 46,000. So is it going to hold the project up?
Chairman, I can't give you a specific this evening. It won't hold the project up. I will check that detail and come back to members of the committee with that update. But as far as I'm concerned, that is on the list. I can see it in front of me, and it will be happening.
Right. Okay, thank you, members. So we have 3 recommendations to review little 1, little 2, and then approve the drawdown. You have
I proposed an amendment that we'd agree
that we bring it
I'm not sure
further information back to the next meeting.
subject to it coming back, but most importantly, that we see what the Investor Save programme looks like and what the outturn is. That's the most important thing, and I'm sure someone will.
Ms Bird, can you amend the recommendations accordingly, please?
Yes, Chairman, of course.
Thank you very much. So on that basis, members, are we agreed? Thank you very much indeed. Next item 7, supplementary estimates, environments, procurement exemption, use of reserves. You'll find this on pages 241 to 244. I think that's Ms Lucas, you again.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the purpose of this report is to report on any environments and supplementary estimates agreed under delegated powers during Q3, where they are below the levels requiring approval by this committee, and to seek approval if they're above the level requiring approval by the committee. Also to inform the committee of any procurement exemptions that were granted in this period, and to report on the use of reserves during the period agreed under delegated powers. So it's recommended that the environments detailed at paragraph 3.3.1 are noted, and that the procurement exemptions at 3.5.1 are noted. And just to confirm that there were no supplementary estimates agreed during the period, and no drawdowns from reserves were agreed during the period. I think the explanation around the environments and procurement exemptions should be reasonably self-explanatory within the report, but if anyone's got any further questions, I'll try and answer.
Councillor Foucault.
Just 2, Chairman, on page 243. The exemption 2, number 2, it mentions 145,000, but I guess that should be nearer to 15,000 if the sum total is 145 and we're getting 91% funding. So our commitment is actually only 15k. I hope I've read it that way round. Otherwise, it's a very expensive whatever Beat the Street is. I want to be involved. It's a mass participation. That's one question. And you know, we know a lot about when things are too good to be true. So I'll go now, Chairman, to number 4, sonic wall, firewall uplift. I just hope, Chairman, that we've done due diligence around this company, because you know, I'm delighted that over 3 years we're going to save £110,000, but has the due diligence been done, and are we satisfied that it truly is the like-for-like service and it will deliver on that saving?
I'm sure we'll find out. I'm as eager to hear as you are, Councillor Bleeker.
So thank you, Chair, through you. So with regards to item 2, yeah, the procurement exemption is for the amount set out in the report, and as we are the ones securing the contract, the exemption is for that full amount. But as the report sets out, over 90% of that is not being directly funded by us. So regardless of the funding stream, that is the amount of the total contract, although it's not being purely funded by us. Georgina might want to add something in just a second. Just in relation to item 4, I think we had the same question when this came to the corporate leadership team originally, that is this too good to be true? We have had a discussion with the IT specialist lead, and he has done the relevant research and assures us that this other product will deliver the same level of service. So on his specialist advice, we have agreed to proceed with that alternative product. So yeah, I don't know.
So with the greatest respect, so when we say we mean the 2 directors and yourself, yes?
Yeah, that was the.
Ms Button, did you want to come in on Beat the Streets?
Yeah, so just to clarify, good evening members, just to clarify, the funding for Beat the Streets is a mix of Sports England funding at £64,458, public health funding, which is £71,640, and £9,000 of UK SPF funding, and that totals at £145,098. And what that does is fund the Beat the Streets programme, which is a gamification activity that will install boxes across the whole of the district, and it will encourage communities, school children, everybody to become active and get out walking using Beat the Street passes. It's incredibly popular in other parts of the country and has been highly successful. So we're very positive about this, and we think it will demonstrate and be able to encourage people to get out on lots of walks and be competing with each other, and we'll be able to hopefully demonstrate a really good social activity programme and improve health and wellbeing outcomes as well.
Excellent. Well, we look forward to Councillor Fluker beating the streets. Members, I'm happy to join in. We've just got 2 recommendations for noting. Are we happy to note? Thank you very much indeed. Item 8, review of customer strategy, pages 245 to 250. Ms Green.
Thank you, members. So this report really just summarises the journey that we've been on over the last few years in terms of our transformation of our customer services and our service delivery. So this has culminated in us being in a position where we can now really clearly state to our customers what our key aims and objectives are in terms of delivering those services. So in Appendix 1, what you'll see is it's our commitment to you, which is a statement of our organisational commitment to how we are going to deliver our services. This commitment was developed with the leaders of the group, so there has been member engagement in terms of developing this, and I would commend it to you members as a really clear explanation to customers of what they can expect when they do contact us. Happy to take any questions, Chairman.
I think it's a really good piece of work. Members, Councillor White, you're first to indicate.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. My only concern here is I've always advocated for keeping the phone lines open for and the front desk open for vulnerable residents. I think it's important we support the vulnerable residents. And it always concerns me a little bit when it's new online forms, design our website. I mean, yes, these are all good, but I do want to ensure that we don't just talk about online and we do actually keep the other services going, because we're now looking like being asked to agree more money for IT. So for me, it's the IT and the phone systems that we need to be working on, not just designing websites, because the vulnerable people can't use them. We tend to use them all the time, but as I say, I'm really concerned that we focus on our vulnerable residents. Thank you. And I want, I need the assurances that's going to continue.
I can say from this is a topic that was discussed at great detail by the finance working group when we looked at the potential savings from customer services, and we were very keen that any impact on the face-to-face dealings with the public were kept as much as we possibly could. So this is really coming out on the back of those discussions, which I think suspect is what you were going to say, Councillor.
Yeah, it was. I was just going to draw your attention to that first line, which we were very keen to suggest that actually we would be promoting a range of ways in which they could contact us, online, telephone and face-to-face, and we wanted that up front because actually it read before as it's all about online and everything else sort of gets pushed into the corner, and I think this addresses that balance a bit. Well, more than a bit. I think that helps to address the balance.
Mrs. Green worked really hard on the various proposals, didn't she, that she brought to that working group, and I think we've arrived at a good centre ground. I mean, these things will change. We don't know what impact things like AI is going to have in the future. I'm sure that's going to be significant, but I think at the moment we are probably in the best position given the financial situation. So, members, we are being asked to agree those recommendations. Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't see that, Councillor Fluker.
Resource capacity and the smarter finances. Not sure what that is. But Chairman, the crux of this is I won't read the email, but I've got an email from somebody that is saying that for the last 5 weeks they've been trying to contact the council and get through to somebody regarding a cost decision awarded against this council. Nobody's come back, and the same person has a planning application, and for 4 weeks they've been trying to get through to 2 principal planning officers, and I've tried to do this myself and tried to encourage them to go back to the customer. Sadly, I wasn't aware of this charter at the time, but these are the sort of things that members get, and it always seems to be around service, not being able to get through to people, and with all fairness, I have got Mr. Holmes involved in this, but sadly we haven't really moved very far forward, and it takes up an inordinate amount of members' times when you get stuck in the middle. And I think there was a time when you could phone the council and you could meet an officer here, or even speak to. It's not that long ago when we used to have the duty planner. Could you remember that? And that used to save all the aggravation, all of this sort of stuff. And I'm afraid that when it comes to planning, agents and applicants, they're very cautious about making formal complaints about all the right reasons. But I think we just need to be mindful of that. But I would really like to know what 5.2.1 means.
I think we've got probably Mrs. Green and then Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Chairman. So apologies. Yes, there was a word missing there, which is as. So the aim is that we will continue to focus on those service improvements to maximise our efficiency, and one of those will be some of the changes that we've heard about tonight with the additional officer, because some of those IT changes, some of those efficiencies will enable us to release some capacity to manage that demand. So we are across the board seeing increasing demand, and actually if we can't use them, our services, our systems efficiently and effectively, then actually we will struggle to be able to provide a good service. So it isn't just about providing the current service, it's actually that continuous improvement, trying to use those systems more efficiently. And the more customers that we can have using our digital services, that releases the capacity to make sure we have the staff to support those that are the most vulnerable. So those that need those face-to-face services, those that need those telephone services. So it is absolutely about keeping that balance of ensuring that we can deliver those online, but also making sure we're continuously improving, continuously looking for those efficiencies, and ensuring that we do retain those really vital face-to-face services for those that really need it.
I think, in fairness, I think, you know, we all know there have been issues planning-wise, and I think it's a rather different situation. I've had emails about contact from planning. I don't have them for things like revs and bends. So I think I think the system is working. Whether it's a problem within the planning department, Mr. Holmes might comment on that.
I think there's a couple of issues, Chairman. I think firstly it's a design issue. When we reorganised ourselves, we actually did reduce our resources down on the basis that our planning officers, our professional officers, wouldn't be speaking directly to the public. It would be triaged, and it would come through Fresh Service, or it would come through the customer services team. So whereas previously the public had direct access to officers to speak to, so that is something that the service is struggling with. It understands that, and I think the planning officers themselves would welcome a more direct dialogue, but of course that would increase their pressure on them in dealing with the inquiries, as well as dealing with caseload. So Mr. Winslow is looking at that, and he understands that fully. And I think we've got to remember the environment that the planning team are working in at the moment. They're severely stretched. I think we have kind of no principal planners that directly employ, but we're working on contractors now. So we simply can't recruit in on a permanent basis to our roles, so we're having to use contractors, and they're very good, and they're giving us an excellent service, but it is difficult to sustain that level of commitment. So again, Mr. Winslow is looking at that, and I have informed members before, we've looked at various options to see how we can improve the recruitment process around planning team, but this is a national problem, it's not a district problem, it's something that all authorities are struggling with. So we're also talking to our partners around shared services and a number of options, but the practical impact of that is that, you know, we have just enough staff, and they're just able to keep up with what they're doing, and some of the things you'd like to see, we would like to see too, but just isn't possible at the moment.
We lost Mrs. Herner this week with
Allow me a point of clarity. You'd be pleased to know, Mr. Holmes, that after 6 weeks at 16:16 today, the matter was resolved. So thank you for intervening.
Right.
Look, I get the one about the planning officers, and you know that old thing of mine where I look at the other councils and we see the vacancies we've got. You know, I don't know how many vacancies we've got shown at the moment on the portal on our own website, advertising vacancies. But I was in another local authority the other day, and I know they're not having issues recruiting, although they are a London authority. That might be different. But this is something we've known about a long time, and planning's really important. And, you know, if it means that we're going to have to pay premium rates, which is what we've done before, then Mr. Holmes, you're going to have to come back and face us.
Mr. Holmes.
I may well do in the near future, Chairman, because there may be a new reality that says we do have to pay more. We may have to live in a world where we use contracting staff, and unfortunately that has a cost. So very aware of that. Mr. Winslow will be drafting a paper for me, and I think that will probably come forward to members. So I think there's a slight difference between the report this evening, which is talking about our customer services, and there's a customer standard that's being applied, and it is connected, but I think the essence of this report tonight is about the way we deal with our customers generally. The planning world has got a slightly different challenge and slightly different issues.
I mean, incidentally, I was talking to colleagues earlier this week, and certainly Braintree, Chelmsford and Castle Point are really struggling there, basically. But so there we are. Right, Councillor Stamp.
Just a quickie, based on, I totally agree with the report anyway, so you've got my vote. But would it help this council? I don't know what the policy is. I've sat on 2 recent appeals, planning appeals recently. We're talking about resources here, because I'm sad, we all know that. I like to watch these things. and thank you. There was at least two planning officers sitting through the recent appeal that I sat on. Now, is that normal that the two planners are taken away for 2 days or however long when they actually they're not given the evidence? So you don't have to answer. It's just that I observed that. Would that then save so resources for them to do other work elsewhere? It's just an observation, Chair.
I will cut in before Mr. Holmes. I mean, yes, I've sat in numerous appeals. One of the criticism that we often get, and Councillor Morgan will attest to this, we have on occasions been severely criticised for not defending appeals properly by understaffing them, and that opens us up to all sorts of greater issues. But I think unfortunately that's one of those things, and some of those appeal hearings can be long, and ignoring the attendance at the hearings, the amount of work that has to be done by those officers just for the appeals takes them out of the system for pretty much everything else. It is a real problem, but I'll let Mr. Holmes comment.
Thank you, Chairman. It's the tip of the iceberg what you're seeing there, because of the amount of pre-work that is done. But I think exactly that, if we haven't got the officers to hand and we're not able to support it, then that could cause problems in the hearing. But I would say we don't put officers there unnecessarily. That will be a judgment call in terms of whether they're needed, and it may look like they're sitting there and obviously not participating, but I think it's a contingency, and I think it's something we just have to bear.
Councillor Fittock.
Yeah, I just go. I mean, Mr. Holmes just said what I was going to say. I think they're important there because sometimes evidence is introduced that not necessarily been accounted for, and the planning officers are in the strongest position to rebuke that back to the barristers if need be. So you do is a very valuable tool under certain situations, but it is resource intensive. I agree.
The answer is to have fewer appeals. Right, members, can we please agree that Councillor White?
Yeah, I did have my hand up some time ago, and basically it was how can we put in a benchmark? They've said that it's going to improve customer contact, and hopefully with planning as well. So are we going to have a benchmark in place to see if that actually happens? And secondly, I concur about the appeal with officers not actually being involved in the appeals and literally just bystanding. I'm okay if they're involved, but it's the resources of two officers during an appeal just observing. We need to streamline it and use them where we need to. If they're just observing, maybe one, but do we need two? And if they're not participating, do they need to be there? But that's just something going forwards, because I think we need to streamline. And also, it's always been my argument with the area planning committees that I think they're a budget save item because they only cost 20,000 a year. And I think officers complain that we approve too much. But we're saving money on appeals when we approve things. If we refuse them, they'd probably go to appeal. So
we're not going to get into that argument here tonight, Councillor White.
That is just part of it.
Councillor White, yes, thank you very much indeed. Members, can we please agree this report? Thank you very much indeed. Okay, now item 9, work of the Planning Policy Working Group, which was chaired by Councillor Lagan, who is poorly. But members, you have the report in front of you. I don't know if there's anything that I need to present particularly on this, or there appears to. I wasn't a member of that committee, so I can't speak for it. But there appears to be a great deal of work gone on, and you're just being asked to note the contents. Yeah, Councillor Morgan.
Well, as somebody who was on that working group, I can concur there was a great deal of work done, and extremely valuable it was too.
Councillor Fluker.
I think it would be remiss of me not to say what I'm about to say in front of the committee and officers, but I'm very, very concerned about the direction of the strategy, the actual planning strategy that's been agreed, because what we have on the table at the moment, Essex County Council Education have said categorically that they will not support our strategy on how we're going to build. Now, Chairman, I can refer I hate the 151.
No, keep going, Councillor.
Chairman, I can refer members to various responses from Essex County Council Education, in particular to the large-scale development in Hawthorne, when they're giving out a fairly straight message saying that we don't support this idea of large-scale pepper potting. My feeling is, having been to the examination in public before, if you don't bring your statutory consultees with you, then you're not going anywhere. And I am really, really concerned about the amount of money that's been spent on this. Members would have seen from a previous report, you can see what's being drawn down from the LDP reserve. So I really just want to point this out. And it was pointed out at the last Planning Policy Working Group, and the officers that were there didn't seem to be aware of this response from Essex County Council. But it goes back some way now. They're using the same response at the Bloor Homes development in Southminster as well. Basically, Chairman, they want us to revise our review to include 1,500, 2,000 houses in one place. And when that was put to the policy group, when that was put to the officer at the last meeting, I won't say where they suggested they would go, but this needs to be we need to do something about this, Chairman. There's a huge amount of money being expended on this, and if it's not going anywhere, we need to go back to square one.
Yeah, I don't think it would be right of me to comment about the... Well, no, Councillor Fluker, I have grave reservations about the LDP, the situation of the LDP. I'm speaking personally, and its direction of travel. Certainly, you know, you said, Councillor Fluker, we both sat through 2 examinations in public, one where we had Essex County Council not support us, and one with our duty to cooperate that wasn't cooperative, and that was Chelmsford City Council at the time objected to our plan. So I think this is something that the working group need. As I said, I'm not on. Are you on that group, Mr. Councillor Fluker? Well, no. Then I would hope that you would take those concerns to the working group.
Well, I have,
that
Chairman.
Is, and when the report comes back,
Chairman, I've done that several times, and it's not being responded to. And it is, you know, I would urge any officer that has an overview of this to look at these responses from Essex County Council in relation to the direction of where we are going with the local development plan review. They do not align.
Councillor Fluker, I will ask you on behalf of this committee and Councillor Morgan to take that back. I have grave concerns about some of our rural policies, and because we've seen at North West some absolutely crass recommendations in respect of some rural businesses, which can easily be addressed in the LDP. But I remain concerned. I'm extremely concerned about the potential direction in respect of additional developments with a new government, because they've made it very clear that the planning restrictions are going to be lifted in order to build. We shall see. We maybe have that foisted on us. Councillor Drivers first.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm on that committee as well. I share a lot of these concerns. I'm under the impression that part of the process that we've got to go through is to build our evidence base that would enable us to push back against being pushed into a position where we're expected to adopt any particular policy or any particular area. Without the evidence base, we've got difficulty doing that. So my understanding is that that's part of the process that we're going through at the moment, building the evidence base, rather than, and I recognise that, and there is an issue that I've got, that the starting point appears to be a bigger number of houses than we really need to put in, but however, we need to build the evidence base if we're actually going to present a reasoned argument about why some of these developments are just no-goes, but of which the education argument, which is the concern being raised by Essex is clearly one of them.
When the plan goes for examination in public, if there isn't sufficient evidence, the inspector just drop kicks it across the goals like we did, like it happened in the rugby the other day. And absolutely everything is about evidence. And if you can't evidence it, the inspector just says, well, I have no faith in that policy. So I would hope that the working group is producing evidence for whatever it's putting forward, because it's going to go nowhere without evidence that can be substantiated. And you can't just come up with rubbish, because unfortunately the planning inspector first time round saw through it. I'm going to go to Councillor Fittock next.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. I mean, because obviously we start...
I've got you, Councillor Stamp and Councillor White.
No,
Councillor Fittock was first.
I think the point Councillor Bugger's making really applies to the volume of houses that we're looking to model, and the perception that the county council have because of that. Because to achieve that level of growth, you need to spread a large number of developments across different locations within the district, which isn't the position that they ordinarily support, because they prefer things to be all clustered around the infrastructure. So I think it's confusing to many people, because we are modelling for far more than we need, and I think to some degree that's probably put Essex County Council on their back for in terms of the consultation, because even that was potentially a lot more than we need. And I think that's where the confusion's coming with the county council. So I think we probably need to have a look at where we are.
I think, yes, and I'm going to come to you next, Councillor Stamp. But what I want to just say is we're not debating the LDP review here, please. And we don't want to go through it again.
My concern really is the fiscal implications of, if we're going down the wrong way, it's just we've already done £1 million on this.
Yeah. It's noted, Councillor Fleeger. Councillor Stamp.
Mine is going down the wrong way. The fact that I was hoping a report would come to council to actually give us a little bit more meat on the bones to say, are we doing the 15 years? Is it the 20 years? Because I feel that we are going down a rabbit hole. I think it needs to be taken back. We need to be looking at those strategic sites yet again, and we need to be making some decisions on those strategic sites. I actually think we should have a report to this committee every time we meet on the progress of the LDP, with the supporting documents and policies that have gone to that working group. And it's no more work, because it's obviously gone to the planning policy working group. But I feel as though I'm definitely out of the loop on this. And I know flipping well that when it comes further, we're all going to have massive debates and issues about the direction that this council has been led or gone that way, which maybe 31 members will not agree with it. So to me, you start doing it properly.
Yeah, and again, I'll share your frustrations because I don't know what they've been doing. Councillor, Mr. Haynes.
Thank you, Chairman. First thing I'd say, just to remind members, this is the report of the working group. It's not an officer report. It's a report of the chairman of the working group, and as the chairman, that chair could put that report forward in the format that they felt was necessary this evening. I think the important thing is we pick up your comments this evening, and they are fed back informally to the working group, and that working group considers those issues that you've raised this evening. It isn't the vehicle this evening to talk about the LDP. I appreciate the implications are wider, but that's why I think the working group should come back and give you the information that you're looking for.
Yeah, okay. Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, my computer's now just restarting itself, so it'll probably never work again. My queries are, this is too fragmented, and it was the concern I had all the way along. Last time we did the LDP, all members were involved, all stages, we all worked on the evidence, we all added in, and we raised queries as they come up. Now, I was hoping tonight we were going to have some form of valid report we could actually read, and we'd have an awareness. As it is, it just says, yep, we've done a report, thank you, we're going on. And we don't know what evidence is being collected. And the other thing I keep raising is Mayland is now classed as a larger village. It concerns me because I live there, so I have a non-pecuniary interest.
Councillor White, I know you keep going on about that.
But I keep asking for an answer, and I don't get an answer. Mayland Sea is completely separate to Maldon. They've got the post comes
We are
from
not
different places.
debating the
No,
LDP
but it's,
or the villages,
but
and this
if
is a
I'm-
member's report.
Yes, but the problem is we're not getting the background. And it was what I raised to start with. It's fragmented, and all members need to have all of the background. You can't just give us a finished report, because all the members will pull it
Councillor
apart
White,
and it
then
will
I
go back
suggest
to...
we
stage
request
one.
that the chairman of the working group, which he would have done tonight, come and present his report at the next meeting.
But surely we could have a written update. And it's officer led, so we all need to know.
No, it's not.
It
It's a
feels
working
like,
group. It's
Yeah,
a members' working group, Councillor White.
But we have a phrase with racehorse owners: treat them like mushrooms, can keep them in the dark and covered up as long as you can. And for me, we need to be transparent, and all of this needs to be available for all of us at all the time.
Well, we will relay that to the chairman of the working group, which I will do.
And
Councillor Flicker,
officers.
you look like you're going to say the members' working group.
Chairman, look, at the end of the day, I think all we can do is receive this report and hope the officers, in particular the 151 officer, Chairman, understands the members' concern and relate that to the amount of money that we've spent on this. I mean, it would be a travesty if we are going down a no-through road with no schools and no hospitals.
Well, working group papers are available on mod.gov apparently, but I think we will ask the we will ask the chairman. Thank you. Right, we are now going to move on. Item 10, response to Mid and South Essex NHS ICB consultation. Proposed changes to services at the local community hospitals, pages 255 to 270, and we are not going to get into the full whys and wherefores of that. Who is taking this report? Miss Button. Hello.
Thank you, Chair. As you've said, the purpose of this report is to seek approval of the Council's response to the Mid and South Essex NHS Integrated Care Board public consultation on proposed changes to services at local community hospitals and their associated outpatient services. On the 25th of January 2024, the Mid and South Essex NHS ICB launched a public consultation on the potential changes to the locations for inpatient services for community hospitals, intermediate care and stroke rehabilitation, and freestanding midwife-led birth services, and the possibility of moving all patient services at St Peter's Hospital to other locations in and around Maldon. The consultation at the point of writing this response was running for 8 weeks and was due to close on the 21st of March. However, earlier this week, the NHS team have advised that the consultation is now going to be extended for a further 2 weeks, meaning that it will close on the 4th of April. Further to this, a reference group was formed, and it comprised of the leader of the council, deputy leader of the council, political group leaders and their deputies to inform the council's response. A very passionate session was held where all members gave their views, and we went through all 22 questions in the consultation survey in accordance with the survey itself, and the council's response is set out in Appendix 1. Any consultation response relating to identifying possible sites across the public estate are subject to commercial sensitivities and are not at this stage part of any planning process. Since the production of this consultation response, I can also advise that the potential list of sites has been set out in the NHS's consultation FAQs, frequently asked questions document that is available on their website. The conclusion for this is that as a key stakeholder, it is imperative that the Council makes an informed formal response to the consultation on this matter that will impact the delivery and the accessibility of vital community hospital and health services in the district. It's also worth noting that councillors are able to submit individual separate consultation responses.
Thank you very much indeed, and I would urge members to do so. Councillor Spenceley.
Thank you, Chair. Well, this needed to be a very careful response, and I agree with the bulk of it, but we do need to be very robust on this issue. Page 263, I do take issue with Section 8, where a strange kind of arithmetic has happened, where it's been decided that there's a very good idea and a very bad idea, and if you take away the good idea from the bad idea, you get something that's neither a bad idea nor a good idea. Actually, the question that's being asked is the question in bold. Select one of the following statements that most closely matches your view about moving all other patient services out of St Peter's Hospital. Whether services are in or around Maldon or at the end of the earth, it is not the question at issue. It's the issue of moving services out of St Peter's Hospital. The other thing is that the NHS in their rubric here say, if there is a decision to move all the services the ICB is responsible for at St Peter's Hospital to other locations, it's likely that the NHS Foundation Trust will decide to close the hospital permanently. And I do want to put on record what we all know, which is that they've already decided this. If you look at the pre-consultation business case, section 5.2.6, there's a committee, a task force of clinicians who were asked to explore various options for the future of St Peter's Hospital. The decision tree shows a 6-stage sequence of questions and answers. The very first stage asks, does the option use St Peter's? If the answer is yes, the response is eliminate. And actually this has been provided for me, not by myself, but by a social policy researcher in Cornwall who I got in touch with. He's campaigned on a similar issue at a hospital in Cornwall. He's very kindly done a 5-page report which completely rips to pieces this whole consultation process. But as you say, this isn't the time, Chair, to debate the ins and outs of that. But we do need a very robust response on this one, and we need to think very carefully going forward about how we set out our position.
Yeah, this is something that's, of course, very important to absolutely everybody here and everybody in the district. And, you know, have they already decided? Well, I couldn't possibly comment, but I think Councillor Fluke was next and Councillor White.
I think just to maybe explain the background to page 263 and the decision, I think it was when the officer said that she'd consulted with all of the leaders and all of the deputy leaders, and they couldn't work out whether it was bad or good. I think that probably says a lot about them.
I take offence at that. I'm one of those, and that was not the case at all.
Okay, right. Well, I've said it, and I've said it. But Chairman, it is very, very difficult to get a consensus when you bring people into the room. Yeah. I agree with Nick. I think they probably could have had at least gone one way or the other, rather than saying it's one thing or the other. Chairman, I should really declare an interest, because I'm a frequenter of St Peter's, particularly the phlebotomy department, and I look forward that when that interest is recorded, they spell it right. But Chairman, they've already said that's closing.
Yeah, I know, Councillor.
And this to me is just a complete, utter waste of time, effort and money. Because it's a done deal. I think, Chairman, they're moving facilities. I mean, it's extraordinary how Southminster suddenly came online just after Christmas, and the NHS have pressed the button to provide a very large centre there. I'm confident that Burnham will be getting a new surgery. We've got one at Southwood and Ferris and Danbury. I don't like going all the way to Maldon to have my blood removed, but it is what it is. But you know, we can talk about this as much as we like, and we can have all sorts of meetings, and it's much more fun as it's election year, but not in May, I heard this evening. But how much time do we want to expend on this, knowing we all know the answer?
Councillor Fluke, I'm a proud member of the Vampire Club like you, and I spend more time than I wish in that particular department. I think we all know that St Peter's is probably many years ago. I think I saw you, Councillor White, first, didn't I? and then Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Stuart. Yeah, and I'm obviously more blood tests. Yeah, I'm regularly in St Peter's as well. But what I would say was I went for a phlebotomy test a little while ago, not this recent one. And the staff there said they've already been given notice that it's closing. They know it's closing. And they said, but what upsets them is the stroke ward has had a new floor. They said the only thing that doesn't work anymore is the lifts. But when you go there, there has been deliberately no maintenance for the last 50 years.
Well, we're not.
Since, like, you know, and we keep raising this. Now, I know the MP's behind it. There must be something we can do. I mean, I you know, because basically they've said it's worth £6 million, was it £3 million? And they want it for building. End of story. But I do think that we have to try and do something. You know, as much as we can, because it is our hospital.
Well, we all share your views, Councillor White, and I must admit, if it goes on the market for £3 million, I'd be happy to sell my kidneys and I'll have it for £3 million. Miss Button, you wanted a comment?
Yes, thank you. It was just to clarify on question 8, where the response from the members was that the answer was it's neither a bad nor a good idea. The actual response we followed on after that was that members said that question really should have been set out as 2 questions, and that 1, the council did not want to see services move out of its local hospital, which is now set to close, so therefore it's a very bad idea. And then 2, however, the council does not want services. The council does want services to stay within the Maldon district, so therefore it is a very good idea. So what we did was we split it out because we couldn't possibly answer that question as it's set out in the survey. We felt that that was unfair to simply answer the question that what do we think of services, outpatient services moving out of St Peter's Hospital? Yeah. Because members felt very passionately, as Councillor White has said, about the lack of prevention and maintenance of the hospital up until this point. So that's why members chose to separate that out.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, there is an awful lot of work going on in the background, as Councillor Stamp will know, because we were told by Mr. Doherty that the NHS will not close St Peter's until the current services offered on that site are available at another location elsewhere in the district. Well, let's hope so. Mr. Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was simply really going to make the same point that Ms Button was saying in sort of defence of the leaders' groups. I mean, question 8, along with a number of other ones, sort of falls into the category of have you stopped beating your wife, quite frankly, and it's very difficult to answer in that particular way. So I think the explanation has been sort of put out very well by Ms Button in that.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I'll go to Councillor Driver, then Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I think there is a fundamental flaw with the question 8, which relates to the fact that this is a consultation on a proposal. There isn't a proposal. There's a sort of general wish that services would remain in Maldon. There is no proposal as to how that actually would be achieved. So I think there is a fundamental flaw in the way in which this is actually set up. And a second point, I don't think we should roll over. I absolutely think we need to be making a hell of a lot of noise, because I don't think, it might at one level appear a done deal, but it's a done deal if actually we do nothing. So it depends on how much noise and how much political will we can muster, and political trouble we can create, which might result in some change. Thank you.
I totally agree, which is why I said that individuals need to respond. The consultation is written how it's written. It's not, it's, all I can say is that actually Maldon District Council is doing a great deal to look at what it can do, as is Essex County Council. We're working together, as is the MP, as are the residents of Maldon. We are all making a fuss and we are all working really hard to get a satisfactory solution. What that solution will be, we don't know as yet. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I think since this was written, we've received more information from the NHS, someone alluded to it earlier, about potential locations for some of the outpatient services. And I saw X-ray in Braintree, and there was something in Southwood and Ferrers and something in Burnham-on-Sea, I think. Well,
Burnham-on-Crouch. Burnham-on-Sea's in.
Sorry, but
it's in Somerset.
I just moved us. Sorry, I think I know it. Burnham-on-Crouch. I've lost the train of my thought now. No, it's my fault. Yeah, so, well, originally this survey said that these outpatient services would be in or around Maldon, and it didn't specify whether it meant Maldon Town or Maldon District, but really Braintree, Southwood and Ferrers.
No, there is actually a list of other buildings in the Maldon area that has been produced in the FAQs, including this very building, and other buildings will come forward.
Right, but
are in the public
three of the
ownership.
places on the list, and with it's just a bullet point list, isn't it, with services and locations.
Yeah.
3 of the places on the list cannot be described as in and around Maldon,
Right.
and I wonder if we could state in here that we do expect in and around Maldon to mean Maldon Town and
Well, that's exactly what
within a
we've
mile.
said to Dan Doherty. We want it in Maldon. Mr. Holmes.
Chairman, I think Ms Button will give you the list of actual sites. We've got the actual list here, so you can be clear on that.
Go on, Ms Button.
Yeah, okay, so the list that is now within the FAQs in the official consultation materials are as follows. District Council Buildings, Princes Road, which is all of these states subject to approval of Maldon District Council. Second floor Carmelite House, White Horse Lane, again, that's subject to approval of Essex County Council. Blackwater Leisure Centre, subject to approval of Maldon District Council. Retail premises on the High Street in Maldon. Existing health facilities, Want Chase in Maldon. Existing health facilities at Tyler's Ride, Southwood and Ferrers. Braintree Community Hospital for X-ray services, and Burnham Clinic in Burnham-on-Crouch.
Okay, and more will come forward. Councillor Spenceley, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me one more opportunity.
Yeah.
Just to support what Councillor Driver said, I think it is very important that the public continue to return those survey forms and Save Maldon's Medical Services. The group is doing a great job, supported by a large number of councillors, in getting the message out. The average response to public consultations is 0.1%, 1 in 1,000. And the NHS regarded a 0.9% response in Manchester as a really exceptional return. So the fact that 3,000 responses have been received already does indicate that the ICB will get quite a shock in terms of the quantity and vehemence of the public response. And that list of sites is a bit of a sop to the complaint that they weren't being specific about sites. But X-rays in Braintree, it'll mean my dog has a better chance of getting an X-ray in Maldon than I do.
Well, of course, veterinary surgeries perhaps would be, anyway, considered. But no, okay. Thank you very much indeed, members. This is something that's dear to everybody's heart. The fight goes on. And as I said, if you don't submit your own response, then we get what we deserve, is all I can say. So I will have done one already. Okay, members. Yeah, thank you very much. So, sorry, somebody's sending me messages here. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Now we come to 11 Asset Management Strategy, pages 271 to 284. Mr. Butcher. Yeah, oh, sorry, Councillor Stan.
Sorry, it says on my page confidential draft. Are we supposed to be talking about this when you've got confidential draft written on it? Yeah. Or have I got the wrong one?
I think
Asset
you've got the wrong
management
one.
strategy. No, it's this agenda item.
It's not in the P&C.
No, it's not confidential, but at the time of preparing the draft it was, so it should have been removed.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Just need clarity.
It's only on your paper copy, Councillor Stamp. It's not on our electronic. Oh, is it? Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Right, sorry, Mr. Butcher, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. I just wanted to run through the asset management strategy proposal with you this evening. If we can go straight to the appendix and come back to the recommendations in the report afterwards, I just wanted to talk through the strategy a little bit. I've already done a brief introduction of the strategy with members of the Asset Management Working Group and Corporate Projects Working Group, because this will be this potentially will have an impact on them if members approve the strategy tonight. The context of the asset management strategy is around the council's owned assets. The condition of our assets do vary in terms of how they've been maintained. Some have suffered in recent years, but others are performing quite well and obviously compliant with all the health and safety statutory requirements that they need to. We need to transform and evolve our estate as we seek to deliver services under greater financial pressures. Council has to balance its core requirements and physical assets to deliver its services with its other strategic objectives. And one of the main aims of this strategy is to improve utilisation of the estate, rationalise operational use where it's appropriate to do so, and to make cost savings or to improve income generation where it's possible to do so. The purpose of the strategy is to cover the Maldon owned assets over the next 5 years, and it sets a framework around the council's operations, and it's intended to guide and enable future decisions regarding the strategic needs of the council. And this could involve the acquisition, the disposal of estate assets, and it's also to ensure that the assets that we have are fit for purpose, efficient and financially viable for us to continue to use to deliver services. Within this strategy, we set out a governance approach that will support decision making for both new initiatives and day-to-day management of the estate. If we come on to number 3, the strategy vision is to ensure that the council's assets continue to meet its own strategic, operational and financial objectives, as well as those of its partners, residents and visitors. This will be done through optimising asset performance, sustainability and cost effectiveness across its estate. And the key objectives we have is around optimising the contribution that property and land assets make to successfully realising the council's strategic priorities. So that's aligned with our corporate plan. Ensuring that the estate is fit for purpose and financially viable and operationally sustainable. We'll look to reduce the environmental impact of our estate to contribute towards carbon neutrality. And we want to improve asset income by taking measured risks with regards to properly repurposing, investment, or consider the disposal of assets where they're not of strategic importance. And some of these initiatives might include running costs by reducing running costs by improving building efficiency. We want to act upon strategic acquisition opportunities when these are affordable and they align with the council objectives, and where we don't have estate that can currently available to us that's within our portfolio. We want to establish a robust asset appraisal system that will be undertaken throughout the life cycle of this strategy, so for the next 5 years, and that will aid through the strategic decision making. In terms of number 5, the assets management strategy scope, we want the development and maintenance of all existing council-owned land and property. This will consider disposal of surplus assets where they're not of strategic importance to the council, and will consider acquisition of new property or land to deliver council objectives. And there's just a footnote on this that car parks on council land are currently under separate review with a specific car parking strategy being developed. This will look at opportunities for investment, development and technology initiatives in the future, but these will come forward separately as part of that strategy and or as individual business cases. With regard to our asset management strategy and governance structure, the strategy sets out where the delegated decisions are already in place. It's proposed that delegations pertaining to the management of assets are reviewed to allow quicker, less bureaucratic decision making for low value lease agreements. This doesn't necessarily relate to any changes that of the financial leases per annum, but potentially low value leases for a greater number of years could be done in consultation with the leader of the council and chairperson of strategy and resources, with the view that we could increase the 14 years up to 20 years. But that's something that will come forward separately as part of the Constitution's review. The asset strategy seeks to categorise officer activity into two distinct areas. There's the strategic asset management and the operational delivery. These categories identify areas that can be really focused activity and grouped to allow for clear and consistent management, reporting and decision making. And this is shown on the governance structure below 6.21. The proposed asset strategy governance structure also sets out a recommendation that the existing corporate projects working group and asset management working group are replaced with one working group called the Strategic Assets Working Group, reporting into S&R Committee, and this needs to be approved by Council in May. This will remove potential duplication and overlap across the existing working groups and allow for a more efficient process. The governance structure shows the areas in green as the asset management and development area and the kind of strategic area, and in blue this is the operational delivery. The strategy sets out that officers will be work together in these areas to ensure the most effective and efficient management not only of our assets but also in delivering strategic objectives in relation to assets for the council. The asset management strategy implementation, 7 in the strategy. Through the working group, it's intended that we will look at a series of all of the assets, and we'll look at those and see how we prioritise the assets we want to prioritise to look at in the first sort of course of work, and we'll sit underneath this strategy as part of a delivery plan. Obviously, there'll be criteria that we'll need to meet, and I'll come on to that later on as part of the evaluation, but any assets that are known to pose an immediate health and safety risk will be dealt with as a priority. One area this evening I did want to bring members' attention to is 7.6 and our approach to working with partners. Whilst the Council continues to recognise the wider community value and social outcomes delivered by some of our partners, a consistent and fair approach should be taken into consideration for council-owned assets to ensure value for money can be demonstrated. So I think where we've got partners, community groups or voluntary groups that are using council-owned assets at discounted rates or at zero rate for lease income, we'll be asked in the future to evidence how they contribute towards the council's corporate goals. And this evidence will be considered by the Strategic Assets Working Group, who will make recommendations to S&R Committee as appropriate. So I think, in essence, what this means is anyone who gets space, who is delivering objectives on the council's behalf, we will ask for an annual report that will be considered by the Strategic Assets Working Group. And if that is to continue at a discounted rate or as a zero lease rate, then a formal decision is made by the Strategy and Resources Committee as appropriate to ensure that anyone with that discounted rate, a formal decision is made by members and it's not just done purely on a historical basis. Council policy and approach with this strategy is also that we'll no longer subsidise any utility expenses on its asset. These must be paid for in full by the leaseholder. And arrangements will be made to meet local and regional partners to discuss strategic asset management matters and opportunities on a regular basis. And this will come working in relationships and partnerships across the one public estate. Lastly, the asset management value evaluation. So, as stated earlier, we are keen that we work closely with the Strategic Assets Working Group and want to deliver a delivery plan that sits underneath the strategy, which takes into consideration a number of different factors that we can then progress the assets that we want to prioritise. Where assets we're looking at, we want to invest in, acquire or dispose of, individual business cases will be raised and then presented to the working group and subsequently committee for a formal decision. On the last part of the evaluation, there's a proposed asset strategy flow diagram, And I appreciate that this diagram will work in most instances, but it may not work for all. I think there'll always be exceptions to the case. And members, if I can just bring your attention back to the original report and the recommendations. I think our recommendations to you this evening are that members note that it's proposed that consolidate the Corporate Projects Working Group and the Asset Management Working Group into one group. And then this is subject to ratification by the Council next week. And then subsequently the Asset Management Strategy would be approved to the Council. Thank you, Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Sure, there will be questions. I mean, certainly in respect of merging the two working groups, I think it makes perfect sense. But Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Actually, as somebody who's on the Corporate Projects Working Group and jumped ship to the Asset Management Working Group, I can fully concur that I actually support this move to put the two together, because we both, one ended up doing the other's job, and it was just got ridiculous. So I think I fully recommend that this should happen. However, when we moved over to the Asset Management Working Group, one thing that sort of came up, and I'll just sort of put it through you, Chair, is a simple question as to whether we have a definitive list of what the district council's assets are. And we did put that question, and there wasn't what I would call a particularly definitive answer coming back. So perhaps if I could put it again, perhaps we could have hopefully a more definitive one. Thank you.
Mr. Butcher, let's put you on the spot, isn't it?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you, yes, we do have a definitive list of the assets the Council owns.
Okay.
Is that evaluated as per se?
There will, so
was that
as part of our financial returns evaluation is completed on a cyclical basis. So there will be a valuation, but they're not all evaluated every year.
Councillor Fluker's next.
And look, I've seen something similar to this in the past, and you know, it is what it is. It doesn't really talk much to the acquisition of corporate projects. I don't know what's brought this report here tonight, because both the Asset Management Working Group and the Corporate Projects Working Group have both said that they weren't interested in merging. I sit on both of them, and I've listened back and read my notes from those, and I stand by what I just said. There's a lot of reasons why I don't think they should merge, Chairman, but it's 9 o'clock, so I'll save those till next Thursday night, because I'm sure we all want to be there till midnight. But Chairman, this is all very well, but you know, one of the great entrepreneurs of this district, and in fact, I'll say this town, has been trying to make contact with this council to bring forward a joint project at Haybridge, yeah, which has so many social benefits and so many general benefits, and 12 months later, nobody's bothered to call him back. And I've seen the emails.
Well, perhaps
Chair.
you raise that next
I mean,
Thursday,
this is all very well, but if we're not actually returning phone calls and we're not talking to people, you know, I know we expended a huge amount of time on another project, which ceased, but I find this really strange. This strikes me of getting rid of planning committees, and officers keep bringing it back and members saying no, although I think we've done that to death tonight if you read the minutes that we've just approved. But yeah, I'm just a bit surprised that the members of the Asset Management Working Group and Corporate Projects Working Group could see the reasons why not to merge, but we've got this report here tonight. And Councillor Morgan is right what he says, but the problem is, and as Mr. Dodson agreed with me, the difference between corporate projects and asset management, one was actually something that we held in our hand, and one was something that we were hoping to hold in our hand. So you can't have a corporate project at the Asset Management Working Group and vice versa. Okay. There are lots of other reasons, Chairman, based on performance, and I'll bring those up on Thursday. And I presume that'll be a public report on Thursday.
Look forward to it, Councillor Fluker. Mr. Holmes.
Chairman, just by way of update for the member, we have actually spoken to the person you were mentioning around the difficulties around the Haybridge Basin area, and there is a officer meeting with that individual within the next couple of weeks.
There we go. Okay. Councillor White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, mine is really, I can see why they want to merge them, because, for instance, for years, we've been on this for years and years and years and years, and we don't seem to progress very far. And mine was for the museum on the Prom Park. I've always said, could we not do a better location and release that building for housing? Because £20 a year or every 5 years or whatever we get, is a waste. It's not to do away with the museum, but couldn't we house it in some lovely modern building right down on the seafront and free that building up? So I can see why the two would merge. But I think for me, until we get the background of how it's going to work and what the procedures are and what we're hoping to achieve, I think it's a bit premature to add them together. And just out of curiosity, in my diary, I keep getting asset management working group meetings and I keep getting them cancelled. So I've yet to see one in the last God knows how long that has actually happened.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, to me, a project has a beginning and an end, and then that's the end of that, whereas an asset would keep going. But not having served on either group, I'm maybe not quite qualified to comment there, but it doesn't sit right with me. I wanted, through you, Chair, to thank the Chief Financial Officer for answering so many questions that I asked ahead of this meeting. Being standing in, I had a lot of questions, so thank you for that. One that I didn't ask is around the utility expenses. On the face of it, yes, I would certainly support that anybody in our buildings should be paying for their own utilities. I just wonder if we've actually looked more deeply at that. It seems right, doesn't it? But if it's going to be particularly onerous on somebody and they're not going to get very much notice, do we really understand the impacts of doing that? And actually, is it possible, if somebody's in our building, have we got separate electricity supplies that we can measure separately, please? Thank you.
Mr. Butcher, have you?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think the intent is that we wouldn't want to implement this with immediate effect from the 1st of April, that we'd liaise with people that are in our buildings and work with them, and so we can fully understand the implications. Where they're in the shared space and we don't have a individual meter for them, then we'd base it on the square footage or that they occupy. So we'd estimate for those ones that are in shared buildings.
Which is not unusual in commercial world. No.
Yeah.
Councillor Stamp.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad Councillor Stevens has raised that question. I'm a little bit concerned regarding some people who lease and operate from our buildings anyway. The first one is CAB. We have the CVS as well. We have Action for Carers. I mean, I would be really upset if somebody like Action for Carers falls foul of these new processes for this asset details that are registered in here. Forgive me, I have turned around and said 7.62 and I've put in big letters no, I don't agree with that. And my reason for things like people don't always understand or even know about Action for Young Carers and where they are and what good they actually do within here. We all know about CAB, we all know about the CVS, we all know about the big things, but there are lots of smaller groups that need, as far as I'm concerned, and do a fantastic job within our community. So based on what I've just said, would they fall foul of forgive me, this council now changing its possible strategy without the consultation of the council? Because I think we've been banging on for a long time about having leases and everything, so it is fair. So how would that fit in? If you can give me a little bit more information on that, please.
Okay, Mr. Butcher.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think, sorry if my description didn't give enough detail. I think the intention is, and Citizens Advice is a really good example. We know that the work they do impacts on a lot of our residents and it really aligns with our corporate goals and objectives. What I'm suggesting is that where we have organisations in our building and we give them a discount or we give them free space, that they provide us with an annual report or statement, doesn't necessarily need to be War and Peace, but something that confirms how they are contributing towards the council's strategic objectives. And then that's for members to make that decision as to how and why we continue that lease, because we have a number of leases that are historical and we don't have a formal member decision. So it's trying to formalise that. So where we do give discounts, members have agreed to give that discount.
Can I come back? So you will do your due diligence by looking at these bank accounts and money they've got sitting and get funding from elsewhere, will you? And the reason I'm going to give you is Action for Young Carers. They contacted me, I don't know, a month ago, 6 weeks ago, and what they were doing, they were arranging a trip to go to the Burnham cinema, and they couldn't afford the coach. Okay, so don't know why they got hold of me, maybe because they thought I'd sort it, which I did. And they said, you know, Councillor Stamp, we haven't got any money to pay for the coach, and there was up to £500. Anyway, eventually we found some funding for it, but the community value for Action for Carers, it's people who look after people, whether they're the children that go to the cinema. They need time away because they're looking after their parents or their siblings or whatever. So I wouldn't want this council to be making decisions about charging them a hefty rent when they're struggling to get funds and financial, you know, gains from any other charities. So can you reassure me, especially on this, that this council will not be looking, as I call the easy targets, when we think about how much money we pay as a council to support other things, please?
Yeah, of course. I think all I'm trying to do is make sure that we have a fair process, and any decisions to give a discounted lease agreement would be presented to members for consideration. It's just making sure that that process is in place so that these can come to members for a formal decision. It's not necessarily me that makes that decision or officers, but I want to have a fair and equal process for everyone that's using our buildings, and for those that have a discounted rate or a zero lease rate, so that we have that decision documented formally by members. And then that will continue as per, you know, whatever is agreed by members of committee.
I think, Councillor Stamp, it's a very good point you raise, but we are obliged to demonstrate that we're giving our residents value for money, and there has been considerable discussion in the past, and Councillor White will know because she's mentioned it on many times, where we've given the CAB free accommodation and bucketfuls of money, etc., etc. We have to, and Mr. Butcher is absolutely right. I think we have to know what we're getting if we are providing either a free or discounted service, because we can't. Otherwise, we just open our doors to every well-meaning, and they are. And I'm not saying that they're not doing a fantastic job, but I don't think it's unreasonable for them to give us a report to say what they're doing if we are giving them a preferential rate over what would be a commercial rent.
I understand. I really do. So if you go to 6.1.3, page 279, you've just said that the council will make the decision. 6.1.3 says longer leases can be agreed in consultation with the leader of the council and chairperson of S&R committee. These delegations can be increased up 14 years to the value of 25,000. So are these leases going to come to this council, or are they going to be delegated? I actually don't think they should be delegated. I think everything should come to this committee.
Mr. Butcher.
Yeah, I think everything as per the delegations you see there does come to committee. So anything that's greater than those financial values or greater than the 14 years will come to committee. Decisions are made on agreements that are less than those values and less than those timescales. But that's relating to, so the council has a policy that wherever possible we seek market rent. That relates to commercial leases, and I think the leases that we're talking about with the partners and voluntary groups fall into a different category where we're not going to be looking to charge them full market value.
Councillor Driver.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it's just a question of the hoops that we're expecting people to jump through, and I would be concerned if certain organisations were being pushed into jumping through particular hoops which were very onerous that actually they couldn't cope with, and it would undermine their ability to do what we want them to be doing, which is to support the residents. Can I just go back to the main point about the two working groups coming together? I would support that because I have sat on both, and we have a lot of overlap. Well, we have a lot of overlap, and actually that is not efficient. So I accept that, you know, the management of these groups or the management of this new group will be important. But actually, if this reduces the amount of overlap, then I think that would be beneficial.
Good. Councillor Fittock first, then you, Councillor Fluker, then we're going to end this.
Yeah, I mean, I think what the point Councillor Stubb was making is that underneath this there needs to be a process whereby what you're trying to do is standardise the charging mechanism. That if a charity or whoever has a problem in meeting the expectations of the council, it comes back to council relatively quickly, and it's not a battle between the officers and the charity to actually get the best they can out of it. So as long as that process underneath it, I think, gives the members a chance to intervene, I don't think there's too much of an issue.
Right, Councillor Fluker, then we're going to end it.
Chairman, just as a point of clarity, can I say, Mr Holmes, after more than 12 months, I'm delighted that you went back at 10:30 this morning. So I'm grateful, and obviously the web that I weave sometimes even...
Can we, bring it, yeah.
Whatever. But look, Chairman, we've been going on for a long time already, and I suspect if it is the will of council that these two working groups merge, then I hope that officers put by sufficient time for members to attend.
Well, we need to make a recommendation, that's little one, to merge the groups, and then to the council that the strategy is approved. So, are we in agreement to take this to the council? Well, Councillor Fluker, you can have your.
Well, Chairman, there's a lot in the strategy. It's not just about merging committees. There's a lot of other stuff in there. I think it needs to be looked at.
Well, it will go to council. Are we happy to approve it to go to council? Thank you. Thank you, it will. Right. Thank you very much indeed.
Chairman, just a note in respect of that.
Yeah, thank you, Tara.
Just
Go
want
ahead.
to point out that the merging of the working groups is going to statutory council. Obviously, if members agree not to do that, then we will need to amend the policy should council agree that next week.
Yeah.
Because it currently refers to the proposed new working group, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it does.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Item 7, other items of business the chairperson decides are urgent. There are none, so we...
Mr Chair, I've had my hand up for a little bit.
I'm sorry, I didn't see.
That's okay. I just wanted to say that I'm happy for it to go forward to council, but not endorsed by Strategy and Resources.
We have voted to do that, I'm afraid. So.
We haven't supported it. I haven't supported it.
Yes, we did. We approved it. We did.
I thought we just approved it going to council.
No, we approved it. The
Well,
recommendation.
I'd like to disagree with that. Then I did not support it.
Okay. Thank you. So item 8, exclusion of public and press. Under Section 100 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting for the following items of business on the grounds that they involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as described in paragraph 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Act, and this satisfies the public interest test. I so move. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Everybody in favour? Thank you. So that moves us on to the first item, which